The At Your Insta podcast is brought to you by Comic Town. Check them out at www.comictown.net or search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook.
Hello. Gotcha.
You got me. And welcome to At Your Instep. My name is Mike, and I'm here with Morgan.
Hello.
And Dave.
What's up?
And my wife, Katie.
Hi.
We are, if you couldn't tell by the audio quality, we are road tripping to GP Louisville, and we said, you know what? Carcast. It's been too long.
It's been, so the last time we carcasted was what? Grand Prix...
Detroit?
No, it was, I can't think of it. Grand Prix Richmond? The modern one? The big giant...
Oh, yeah. So, I am show running here today, and I apologize for the noises again, we're driving, but Morgan is concentrating on the road.
Fact.
So,
Hopefully it doesn't kill us.
Yeah, hopefully. Jeez, Katie, thanks. The microphone is literally being held in place by like 5 elastic bands.
It's true.
So,
That's true.
yeah, we're taking it old school. This is going to be a little bit of a throwback.
Yeah, it's going to be a bumpy ride for everyone involved.
Yeah.
But we do hope that you guys stick with it. But yeah, we wanted to do a podcast, and we had some other things that were outside of the game that kind of come up, and we really didn't have a good time to podcast except for today. So we hope you guys enjoy it. And Mike's actually going to be running the show while I concentrate on driving, so might be a distinct lack of me.
Don't kill us.
So we're going to discuss the PAX showcase of Kaladesh in the community section, and we're going to talk some sad LSV announcements, well, depending on your perspective. And then we'll move into competitive and discuss Worlds. We're not going to discuss tons of deck lists because, well, Standard's dead. Long live Standard. And then we're going to wrap it up with our question of the week. So let's get right into it. PAX, we got the Kaladesh showcase, and they really recreated Kaladesh like at PAX. Like they had a street fair, they had all these different things. It was pretty cool looking. But we got all the new mechanics. So you want to take a look at those?
Yes, please.
Sure.
All right. Our first mechanic is create, and now this technically is not new. This is their new wording for making tokens.
Yeah, we saw this kind of spoiled on the promo Rise from the Tides, where it's like, whoa, why is it worded that way? Well, so we kind of knew this was coming, but now we'll see it in full force.
So yeah, just some cleaning up of words, nothing too crazy there.
So if you're creating tokens and things like that.
Right. I think it's also fairly flavorful for Kaladesh. It's supposed to be the Inventor's plane, so the Inventors create. So it sounds nicer than put A.
They just exist. You just put them places.
So that's the boring one. Let's get to the exciting one. We got the vehicles. What? Creating is fun. And this time we're going to create vehicles. We got a whole new car type, guys. Now, subtype. It's their artifacts.
So your timer board's not getting any bigger.
But it's now says artifact vehicle. And vehicles are interesting. They have power and toughness, but they're not creatures. Yet.
It's kind of,
So vehicles have a mechanic called crew, and crew has a number associated with it. So to give an example, we have Sky Skiff, which is too generic for a 2/3 flying artifact vehicle. It has crew of 1. Tap any number of creatures you control with total power 1 or more. This vehicle becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So if you're catching the flavor, you get a pilot. You put a pilot in the vehicle, and the vehicle, can be driven. So it's pretty interesting, and we've seen a ton of different types of vehicles so far.
Yep. You can live out all your Fast and Furious deck building wants. You could live your life a quarter mile at a time if you really want to.
you can even play an all-vehicle deck because there's a card that turns all vehicles into creatures.
That card is called Start Your Engines.
Which is amazing.
Could you turn it into a stadium, like Crew Stadium?
I see what you did there. That's a very Ohio-specific joke. But Jordan will actually enjoy that.
There you go.
That's why I get it. It's just something different.
No worse future. See, we're going old school.
Hashtag YOLO.
We're going old school cast quality here, so we're just throwing out a shout out to Jordan. We might be many more.
We had to channel him a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, some of them do have haste, but the ones that do not have haste, like if you crew them, they can't attack yet. So once they become creatures, they'll have summoning sickness. So you have to pay attention to that. Some of them have entered the battlefield. effects. There's an airship that does 3 damage to a creature or a planeswalker. There's one that draws a card. There's a rare that's a manolith that can tap that mana, but also can be crewed. So they're an interesting dynamic. They play really well against like sorcery speed removal, because if you're attacking with them, they're not going to be creatures on your opponent's turn. But they also suffer from not being creatures themselves. So if your opponent kills your creature, you can't crew it.
They killed the pilots. There's no way to drive the vehicles.
Now, Morgan, I think you said you have already found your personal pilot in the new
Oh
standard.
yeah, Lupine Prototype is my wolf robot captain.
He's gonna be the chauffeur.
Yeah, chauffeur all day. He's going to be driving Mr. McCarl all day, every day.
So he's got his butler tuxedo there.
Yeah. I mean, he can crew every card, every vehicle that we've seen so far with his 5 power. And I know people might question, having a wolf robot pilot your airship, but he seems, to be fair, for that card, it's only a crew 3, so he's overqualified for the job.
Man.
I think it's interesting to note that you can crew at instant speed as well.
Yeah.
And you can also use your creature doesn't have to be you can play a creature and then right away use it to crew a vehicle. It doesn't have to. If it's somebody's deck, you can still tap it to crew a vehicle. So I think it'd be interesting for gameplay reasons.
And I think it's interesting too that they've already showed us they're putting pilots in there, and we make the joke about pilots, but that's actually a new description for a creature. We have Speedway Fanatic, which is a human pilot, and most of these pilots have an effect with vehicles. So Speedway Fanatic has haste, and says whenever Speedway Fanatic crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains haste until the turn. So pilots have specific effects with cars. They have an affinity for vehicles, if you will.
And other vehicles can crew other vehicles, which is hilarious. So you can drive your car onto your aircraft.
That's actually great. This is my Bocar plane.
Bocar plane?
Oh man, and we've had it. Okay, when did we talked about it on the cast before?
We did.
So
I don't know.
It was with Min, right? Wasn't it with Min?
That's true.
I don't know. Bocar planes.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Hashtag Bocar plane. So let's move on. Vehicles are sweet. Let's move on to Mechanic E, otherwise known as the way that Mega Man gets his health back.
Yep.
Yeah. This is energy. So Mechanic E was something that Mark Rosewater's talked about since Mirrodin, and you can see parts of in cards with charge counters. But he wanted this idea of its own symbol, a way to accumulate energy and then use it. And we see this in this set. Multiple creatures create energy, and it's this interesting little symbol. It's like a pentagon with a lightning bolt on it.
Yeah.
Pentable. I don't want to say I'm afraid to say penta anything because of the demonic connotations.
That's true. It's a 5-sided shape.
But one of the first ones.
A 5-sided shape of some sort. I don't know what they call this.
So we have an example here, Architect of the Untamed. This is 2 generic and green for a 2/3 creature, elf, artificer, druid. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get an energy. So it has kind of landfall for energy, which is sweet. And then pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 energy to create a 6/6 colorless piece artifact creature token. So the downside to this symbol is that it doesn't stack well on some of these cards, but it seems sweet so far.
Yeah,
You use the energy, does it go away?
It goes away, but you can accumulate them. It's a separate thing you accumulate.
yeah, they're like counters that you get.
Are they actually making actual physical?
There's a token representation for it, but the
it's-
correct representation for it is the yellow energy card from Pokemon. There's no other option.
That's what I was thinking.
But so it's not like a token. It's not like a clue token though, where it's an actual.
No, it's
artifact
not
that
in
can be
play.
interacted with. You can't interact.
It's a
with.
Well,
marker.
what about like a section, how they have the little gemstone?
You can use whatever you want to mark it, but it cannot be interacted with in any way so far from an opponent. Now, maybe they do print a card that takes energy away, but
You can think of it as of right now, as we know of it, as infect.
Yes.
Poison counters.
Right.
Gotcha.
So-
But you use them as a resource.
they use them as a resource. They are another resource.
So, did they say that each card that uses energy also has a way to generate energy? Is that
Most of them. That was the idea.
Okay. Yeah, it's really cool. And I wasn't really high on this at first when I first heard about it. I was like, that sounds kind of weird. Seems like they're just changing, they're just changing the rules again, and it's too crazy. but the more cards that they've spoiled that kind of showcase this mechanic, it seems really, really cool. And I think that the best thing about it is that you don't have to use all your energy generated from one card. Like, all your energy just pools into one place. So you can use energy that you got from one card to pay for cost on another card that uses energy.
Officer.
So,
Okay, hold on.
We passed an officer.
but yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited to play with this mechanic. It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. We've seen a lot of cool cards with it already, and I think Rosewater did a good job of breaking down this idea of the economy of energy, and like how many energy they wanted to equate to a certain effect. And you can see that on these cards. So if you want to play the game where you really store them up for big effects, you can. But we've already seen sort of the red-green combination in this set is about using energy aggressively, which is, I think, really cool. Because those are decks that, generally, like if they have access to fast mana, like a bird effect or something like that. In this case, though, like they get to add a whole other resource, and some of the cards are really powerful. So it would be interesting to see how supercharged the aggro decks can get. High fives? High five. Thank you, Morgan. Driving slow. High five.
Don't swerve off the road, Morgan.
What if in the future, is it possible, do you think, to use Storm to create more energy?
No, because they will never reprint Storm again.
Why? But you literally a Storm to create
Well,
energy.
technically, there is a card that creates energy every time you cast, an instant or sorcery?
Yeah, that's true.
There you go.
There's energy Storm.
Yeah, it doesn't say
But it
Storm,
doesn't
but-
say Storm. Like, what
Oh,
is
no.
the energy Storm? Like Lightning Storm.
Well, Lightning Storm is
That doesn't-
that's actually a card.
I will say, though, you bring up a good point. So they specifically designed this symbol for energy so that it doesn't have to be just something in Kaladesh. They want it to be accessible again. And it made it sort of clear that there's a lot of design space here. So I feel like energy, I don't think we're anywhere near seeing it become evergreen, but I do think it's something that will come back more commonly than another mechanic.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's nice, and I think they were careful to do this with this set, since this is obviously the first set that has it, is a lot of the cards are good on their own. Like, you don't need like a ton of energy cards. Like I said earlier, you can have a bunch of energy cards that kind of you use energy generated for one to pay for another, but you don't necessarily have to do that. Like, a lot of the cards are just good on their own. So.
That is true.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry. Can you just look to the right and look at that cloud? And that cloud actually looks like the ship that's on one of the cards right there. Look to your right.
Looks like it's generating some energy right now.
No, seriously, doesn't it?
Oh man, windmill energy?
Doesn't it look like that vehicle card?
Yeah. So that's cloud ship or sky ship?
Sky skip.
I gotta say,
I'm taking a picture.
I love the art in this set, and like I remember the skiffs, the sky sky ships have reminded me so much of like good like Final Fantasy flavor. It's just like yeah, I like this. This set in general, just having a set that looks optimistic art wise, it just feels so nice after all of Zendikar and all of Innistrad. Like
It's just so
Yeah.
bleak.
I was gonna say, like, that's a good point, because what I think about when I see the set, and just like the artwork and just the general like feeling of the environment and everything, like of the world, it's like it feels like it's like at the beginning of an RPG before the crap hits the fan. It's just like, oh, everything's so happy and like, oh, it's a great place.
this is
adventuring with
this
my
is your
friends.
hometown before your family is murdered. You realize
Yeah.
that they had adopted you and you're actually the prince.
Yeah, the chosen one.
Yeah.
That or like a corrupt government of some kind.
Well, that's true. That's actually
may
the set.
true. But anyway, yeah, it's a very happy setting, very bright, colorful. I like it. It's definitely a nice contrast
Yeah.
to what we've had.
Let's talk then about Fabricate, not the blue sorcery.
Not search for an artifact, though that would be kind of flavorful in this set.
So Fabricate
It's
is,
confusing.
Yeah.
is an enter the battlefield ability that creatures have tacked onto them, and they'll have a number associated with it. So, for example, we have Glint Sleeve Artisan, 2 generic and a white for a 2/2 Dwarf Artificer. Fabricate 1. When this creature enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it, or create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. So you get an option. You get to put some counters on your creature and make it bigger, or you get to make put more bodies onto the battlefield. And this feels pretty cool because we've already seen this be a powerful effect in Origins and in Fate Reforged, where we had some creatures who you had the option. Was it it's something Outcast.
Step Outcast.
That's it. Was which one of the best commons that set? Where you either got a 3/2 creature or a 2/1 and a 1/1 flyer. Now, and you saw the red creature that was similar to that made an artifact. That whole cycle in Origins. Now this is different because you don't get Thopters, you get Servos. Now there are still Thopters in the set, so don't worry.
Yeah.
But they even said that they couldn't just have all these creatures in all these different colors bringing flyers to the table. It made for games that didn't end satisfyingly.
Well, and there was no choice. Like you always just got the one.
Yeah,
flyer.
absolutely. You always wanted the bottom. Now this is interesting because sometimes you want this guy to be a 3/3 because you need a crew 3 and you just want one body to cleanly
Extra
tap.
pilot.
But sometimes you have things that are going to make you need to have artifacts for, or you just need more bodies. And there's also already been a number of rares that have a cool interaction with that, like the one that fabricates for 2, and when it attacks creatures you control get +X equal to this creature's power. So if you have a whole board already, then you want to give it 2 counters, so it pumps more. If you don't have a board though, you want the 2 servos so you can swing for more. So they're using this to create some cool tension, and I think this is seems like something that might be forgettable, but for limited, it's going to be a sweet ability.
Yeah, I'm also excited for my cube because in white I have kind of a minor +1/+1 counters theme and a token theme, so it kind of goes right in. So I'm a little interested to see what commons and uncommons we have in white and maybe green in this set.
They heard your cry, Dave.
I know.
They satisfied it.
Fits right in.
So yeah, I mean, I think we've gone through some sets recently and have been really high in a couple of okay, this keyword's cool, but these are kind of meh. And I think even recently we've made fun of Theros again because all of these things look awesome to me. I'm really excited about all 3 of these. The limited format looks like it's going to be so much fun, and I think Dave, you're super excited for Cube. Morgan and I have been like, oh my god, look at all these battle box cards. This set just looks awesome.
I mean, not to mention constructed. There are a lot of powerful cards.
Yeah, absolutely.
For constructed as well. So I mean, this all around set looks awesome so far. Yeah, I mean, we're only halfway through the spoilers so far at this point.
Yeah, and speaking of spoilers, we're gonna talk a couple of key cards here, but I do want to take a minute here and because that's who I am, and talk a little bit of the lore here. I mentioned that the story leading into this, where they had the 5 Gatewatch planeswalkers living together, was really cool. And I listened to Magic the Amateuring this week, and they were talking about how funny it was because it was like a sitcom. Gideon's got his workout room and and everything. It was just really funny, but it was really good. But then they sent them here, and they've really tried to tie this back into the story, but somewhat organically. It's not all perfect, but I have to commend them. They're slowly but surely making Chandra a character that almost makes sense. Because for too long, she was dominated by the, I'm red, don't tell me what to do, I'll do what I want, I'll burn things. Burning things is fun, I'm red. I mean, that was how deep her character went.
Did I tell you that I was red already?
Did I tell you what color it was?
I think I aligned with red. But now they're literally putting her in this as again, it's sort of too in your face, but quite literally, she went there with Liliana because Liliana's trying to get her to she's manipulating her, and Liliana tries to get Chandra to just kill people in the story for this week. She's yeah, if you don't like them, just burn them. And she's we don't do that. And then Nissa is coming to help her too, and red's aligned with, oh look at that, black and green. So you kind of have Nissa and Liliana fighting over Chandra's soul,
like the angel and the devil.
Yeah,
on their
very much
shoulders.
so. And we also got a pretty sweet reveal that Tezzeret is on this plane. He is the head judge of the fair. And at the end of the last story, so Liliana and Chandra converged on Tezzeret, and Pia Noir. Yeah, she's not dead. Spoiler alert.
She was never confirmed dead.
I know, but it was really Chandra's Mom, and Liliana's Tezzeret, and then end scene. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this. Again, this whole world is it does have a much more optimistic feel to it, but we do know that there is this sort of Final Fantasy VII down with the government. They're going to take all the natural resources feel.
Yes, we have the rebels, which are Avalanche, and then we have the consulate.
Yes,
which is Shinra.
Yep. And then Chandra's going to cast Meteor.
Chandra is Cloud.
She just needs to find a big sword.
you know what? This has got a sword. She can hand it off.
Yeah, there you go.
Man.
So we know that that Pia Nalara is like, isn't she like one of the leaders of the
She is the
resistance
leader.
group?
Yeah.
And quite literally, there are mosaics to Kira Nalar all around the city. Like, Chandra sees one and kind of loses it for a second. She's like, that's my dad. And so, like, yeah, he's sort of become a martyr on the plane. And it's interesting. And honestly, I think this is one of the first walkers that we have confirmed that has parents still alive. Jace's have never been any indication. I think they are dead, right?
And more importantly, he, in his origin story, wasn't he like shunned, like Alaman?
He was, yeah.
Like took him away basically because his parents didn't know what to do with him.
But, like, I mean, the idea of parents doesn't really work very well for planeswalkers because they can't planeswalk. So it's a little weird. So I'm interested to see how they do this, but I'm going to go ahead and take a wild guess and say Pia Nalar does not survive this walk. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, probably not.
Hot take. So speaking of Chandra, though, do you want to talk about Chandra?
Yeah, I
I'll
mean,
let you take that one.
she's definitely the marquee card from the set so far.
All right, well, let me read you Chandra, Torch of Defiance. 2 generic red for a 4 loyalty planeswalker with 4 abilities. Yeah, that's right, a 4-mana planeswalker with 4 abilities in red. It's the Blue Jays. And hold on, I'm looking at
The
this
Blue
text.
Jays? You mean the Red Jays?
Red Jays, I'm sorry. My wife just definitely texted me a picture. She's in the car. On this cloud next to the Sky Sovereign console flagship. I'm going to post this on Twitter. They do look exactly alike. This is not a joke.
It's coming, guys.
So +1, exile the top card of your library. You may cast that card. If you don't, Chandra, Torch of Defiance deals damage to each opponent. So we've seen this sort of ability before. Important that the wording is cast, not play. So you cannot put lands into play off of this.
Yeah, so
but if
it's-
you don't hit, it does deal some damage.
Yeah, it's not the same as the 0 from Chandra Pyromaster, the Legend Play lands.
Right.
Or Abbot of Carol Keep.
Right. +1, add 2 red mana to your mana pool, which is sweet. People already said, so you can cast this, take it up, play her oath, kill a creature, end step trigger, you play the planeswalker this turn, 3 damage to your opponent.
Seems solid.
But I think the one thing is, the thing I'm actually most excited about is we have this cycle of like almost like new Titans, and this gets you from 4 to 6 to cast new Titans.
Which we don't even know what the Red Titan is yet.
No, Red Titan is
not Titan, but
Yeah, we'll get to them. We'll get to the Gear Hulks. -3. Chandra, Torch Defiance deals 4 damage to target creature. So she comes with a 4. She can -3 to go to 1 to kill a creature. So it's set up very perfectly, almost like Sarkhan Dragon Speaker was.
Right, yeah.
So where you could kill a creature and then hopefully have a clean board for Chandra to go to town. And then -7, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell. He's called me twice. I'm sorry.
That's Jordan chiming in, guys.
Sorry
See, we
about
told
that.
you.
He gets it was -7. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell. This emblem deals 5 damage to a creature or player.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think of that ultimate?
I mean, that's gonna end the game pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
you
sure.
mentioned Sarkhan Dragon Speaker. I mean, this card is just better in almost every way.
Well, Sarkhan does kill this pretty quickly.
Right.
So
No, I agree.
Sure.
So one of the ultimates like comparable to one of the Jace Telepath Unbound, where you get the same kind of emblem.
Kinda, but you only
This
need to
one's
cast
much
like,
faster.
You only need to cast like 3 spells. Though.
Right.
It might be 2 depending on like where you're at in the game. Like
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
pretty
like-
easy to kill with this.
Yeah, you are playing a red deck. So.
Well, I'm saying like her plus up does damage.
Yeah.
So like, I love this card. I'm shocked. I know.
Yeah, big surprise.
This card's pretty obscene. It's like obviously pushed. I think they wanted it to be the red Jace.
I think they did it.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I had some people reach out on Facebook and ask me like what I thought of it, and like I said, well, I'm pretty certain it's the best red planeswalker ever printed. Koth might argue with you just based on where the format is, because Koth is pretty good at 4 mana, but I think this is it.
yeah, I mean,
And I'm not counting a Johnny Benjamin because I think that was close, but it's red white. So
right. Yeah, I mean, this card is just pretty absurd. I can see it going in a ton of different decks. I mean, it's not, I mean, we've seen a lot of, like, very specialized planeswalkers recently. This one is not that. It's just generically very good, and it's going to slot into control decks, aggro decks, mid-range, ramp decks.
Yeah, it's
It goes into everything.
It's just raw power.
it also isn't 5 mana minus kill a guy plus 1 draw a card. It's close.
Yeah. I mean, I could see this even seeing modern play.
I agree. There are a couple decks that can play this. Scred Red. And I know that's not like a great deck, but this card could help it a lot.
Well, I mean, we've seen Jund play Chandra Pyromaster in the past, and I mean, maybe you still want that because of the 0 ability is I don't know, can be slightly better, but I mean, this just has all the other abilities on it are quite good.
There are more than a few decks in Standard right now that are trying to, or in Standard, in Modern right now, that are trying to cast Titans.
Yeah.
And have been, I mean, we saw Scapeshift splashing for Nahiri recently. You know what I mean? And like, so if your 4-mana Walker also ramps you into your 6-drop on the next turn, or you're playing on a turn 3 with ramp, and then the next turn you're playing, like, I could see playing those decks too, where the ability is already good enough.
In the Invitational, you had I think it was Evan Kepke, who went 7-1 with a Titan Breach list that was playing 2 Pyromasters in his sideboard. So I mean, there you go.
So yeah, I think there's room for it as well. I think there's room for it in Legacy as well. Pyromaster saw play in things like what's the mono red deck you play more? Painter, sir. And I can see this taking that slot there as well. Adding 200 mana to your mana pool in that deck can be a huge thing. I think I don't. It's not Jace. It's not. But it's got applications. Now, I think we're going to talk about this more later, so maybe we should move on from Chandra, but she's good. Let's talk Nissa, though.
I want to talk about my favorite card.
Okay,
we can talk about Nissa.
Nissa was just like right next to it, so...
we can talk about Nissa. That's fine.
All right, so
this is another very powerful planeswalker that we saw.
Now, I do want to point out, and actually, because Katie has showed me a picture of it, there are 2 versions of both Chandra and Nissa. They're both listed as being in this set. 2 of them you will never open in packs. They come from Planeswalker packs. Katie, the one you showed me, Chandra Pyrogenius, is one of the ones from those packs. And they are meant to be very expensive, but not do as much as regular Planeswalkers. But they're sold for intro decks, too. So, now see, you're literally kind of far away, but she said she wants that one. And if you're sitting here as a competitive player going, I don't know why anyone would want that, here's my wife who just enjoys the game for fun and looked at that and said, I want this card. And that's going to sell that. So what if I told you, Katie, you get a deck based around that card that has a card that says you can search for that card plus 2 booster packs. Would you buy it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
so
how much is it?
15.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, there you go. So just so you know, confirmed that they will be bought. But they are significantly weaker than their in-pack versions. So speaking of that, let's talk Nissa, Vital Force. 3 generic GG for a 5 loyalty planeswalker with 3 abilities. +1, untap target land you control until your next turn it becomes a 5/5 elemental creature with haste, still land. -3, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. -6, yes, -6, it comes with a 5 loyalty, that math is correct. You get an emblem with whenever a land enters a battlefield under your control, you may draw a card.
Yeah, this card's pretty good. I don't think it's as busted as Chandra, but it does. This card, it does a lot. So it can come down and just like immediately murder another planeswalker, basically by animating a land and attacking with essentially 5/5 haste.
The old Koth school of magic.
Yeah, right. You can also just animate a land and leave it back to block, to protect your Nissa if you plan on using the ultimate the next turn.
You can also animate a land to cast a spell that costs 1 more to be able to cast it. Corner case, but possible.
You could. You can do it on the second turn that it's in play. You can ramp up to 7.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's the +1 ability reminds me a lot of Nissa Worldwaker, which made your lands into 4/4s. Now the land doesn't stay as a 5/5; it only stays, but it does stay until your next turn, so you can block with it. So you can't just make an army of land creatures, but yeah, I mean it's going to be a good way to pressure opposing planeswalkers, I think.
So,
I think it's pretty good.
something that I didn't quite... how does this work with man lands? Does it just like overwrite the power toughness and make them 5/5s? Don't you activate them?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's still pretty good.
I think it's a layering thing. So, like, say for example, you target what's the green? I guess is it Quagmire? So if you make it into 5/5, I think if you activate it after, then it turns into a 2/2
So the other thing that was mentioned to us, and that was actually by Keller, who's been on the show, was that Nissa's loop themselves. You can play a Nissa -3, get a Nissa back, and it can be really difficult for your opponent to get out of that in these grindy games. So we just saw a standard format, that was really sort of dominated by grindy matches. If we're going to talk about Worlds, dear Lord, we see things like Tireless Tracker sort of dominate fields, and this card is sort of like in that same vein. Now, the ultimate, you can ultimate very quickly, but as we were discussing personally, it doesn't feel insane. It's good, don't get me wrong, but like you're going to do it on turn 7. So you have to make sure the game goes long enough for that ultimate to matter, because it doesn't just win the game.
It's not like we just talked about Chandra ultimate, which will kill in probably the next turn, or 2 or 3 spells or whatever like that. They're dead. This one isn't going to do that, but the advantages you gain, over a long grinding game will win you the game. It's not like apparent. It doesn't say win the game on it, but the game goes long enough, it will win you the game.
I mean, I will say this Tireless Tracker, dear Lord, play a land, trigger, draw a card, trigger, get a clue.
I mean, green is the best card draw.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I hate it, actually.
It absolutely doesn't make any sense.
So you mentioned that they can loop.
Yes.
I think that's an interesting point, because much like Gideon, Ally Zendikar, you can play multiples of these in your deck, and they're not gonna clog up your hand too much, because you can +1 and then next turn and sacrifice it. Maybe even in the same turn play another Nissa,
right,
get back the other one. So then if they kill your replacement Nissa, then you have another one on the way. So it's just like, man, I don't know. Dead Protector's rotating out. Nissa's coming in. I think green's okay.
5 mana is a lot, though. You have to make sure that you survive the onslaught, and it doesn't look like we're getting a steady languish swap. That's not what it seems like.
Yeah,
so
we'll have red has some sweepers that are in the format, but they're not languish,
No, so it'll be interesting to see how a deck like this is built now. They can really take advantage of your 5 mana Planeswalker, because there's going to be aggro decks. We're going to see them. Humans is still a thing. The energy deck is going to be a thing. So this is obviously powerful. Finding the deck that is going to play her and loop her and play that kind of long drawn-out game, that'll be the key. But all right, let's talk about 1 or 2 more here before we move on. Obviously we'll do a whole set review. So what do you want to talk about, Dave?
All right, so let's talk about. All right, so let's just pick one of the Gear Hulks.
Yeah, we can just talk about them in generalities.
Yeah. So
can we talk about the White Gear Hulk then?
Okay.
Fine. Well, no, whatever you want, Dave. You pick.
Let's talk about the first one we saw, the green one, which is Verdurus. I might be mispronouncing this. Verdurus Gear Hulk. So it's 3 generic green for an artifact creature construct. It's a 4/4 trample. When it enters the battlefield, you get to distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. So this card is a beating, I think.
This card is a 5 mana 8/8 if you want it with trample.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a 5/5 8/8 on its own.
Could be a boat.
If you have another creature in play.
If you crewed a boat.
You could crew a boat. There is a boat in a set too.
So could you play this, trigger on the, is it trigger, right? Yeah. Trigger on the stack, crew the boat, put the counters on the boat.
Yes.
Value.
Wait, do you have to target it when it goes in the stack then?
Oh, never mind.
Maybe. Yeah, that probably doesn't work.
Okay.
But anyway, so if you have a creature in play, say you just have like a 1/1 token in play, right? You play this, put all the counters on the 1/1, now it's a 5/5 attacking that same turn.
Yeah.
And then now you have 2 threats that they have to deal with.
So I've seen a lot of comparisons between this card and Wolfir Silverheart, which was a very respectable card in Avacyn Return Standard. Avacyn Restored Standard. And the nice thing is, this is a permanent, sort of thing. If you put it on another creature, so that the certainty and the finality of the +1/+1 counters is kind of nice. Kind of likely bumps it up from rare to mythic.
Yeah, and you don't have to put them all on one creature, which is pretty important. I mean, you can just put 1 +1/+1 counter on 4 different creatures if you want. You can, if you do have vehicles in your deck, you can make a guy big enough to just be able to crew, and then put the other counters elsewhere. So that's a pretty exciting card. I mean, but all of the Gear all of the gear hulks have big splashy effects when they enter the battlefield, much like the Titans that we saw from M11?
Yeah.
M10? No, M11.
Both?
No, they got M11 and M12. I don't
Okay.
know. But probably not as good as those because those cards were probably overpowered. But
Broken? Yeah.
these ones are like basically fixed Titans. They're all artifact creatures, and they're all, I think, going to be pretty exciting for constructed.
They don't all cost the same. Some are 5 and some are 6 so far.
Yeah,
What
right.
we've seen.
Unless I'm crazy, they're all ETB effects, right?
Correct.
Yeah, we still have this crazy little thing called Eldrazi Displacer in the format, so something to consider.
Well, there's one way to repeat those effects.
Oh, man. Is there another card you want to talk about? Because otherwise I think we should talk about Saheeli and then maybe move on.
Now let's save Saheeli for the dessert.
Oh, wow. Okay, I mean, she's just the face and the entire set, but...
Alright, fine. If you want to mention Saheeli, Rick. I don't really like this card that much, but...
Okay. Saheeli Ray is a generic blue-red for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. Yeah, that's right. Blue-red. Deck fade. You know?
Attack Fate, you got company.
+1, scribe 1. Each the planeswalker deals 1 damage to each opponent. -2, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except that it's an artifact in addition to its other types. That token gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step.
You can steal an artifact in the deck and then make a copy of it.
Yes.
So they're like counterfeiters. Is that what we're saying?
I think her actual lore ability, she's able to take any metal and do anything with it.
She can transmute stuff.
Yeah, she can just transmute it. So she is what would have saved the brothers in Fullmetal Alchemist.
Correct. Accurate.
So, -7, search your library for up to 3 artifact cards with different names, put them onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. Now, I will tell you, we're going to talk about this later, but there is a 3 artifact combo in the set that you can kind of go infinite with. So she can't do that. That's hilarious.
So, what's hilarious about that is, like I had mentioned, the stations.
The stations, yeah.
Now they're not stations, right? They're
No.
something else.
They're
It's modules.
modules, that's it.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
So this is an interesting one. She's definitely aggressive. 3 mana planeswalkers are always worth a look. And that +1, it doesn't draw you anything, but scry 1, deal a damage is the kind of effect that, over the course of a game, really does shape it. I like the way this plays. You're looking at a deck like the Thermal Alchemist deck that's already in standard. That scry 1 when you get to draw extra cards is great. And then the turn you're trying to go in for all the damage, her minus is devastating. Both her ultimate is fine. I don't know how often that will happen, but the minus to make a copy and just sort of get in for damage, it's really good. So, and I think this is one of those planeswalkers that it's easy to ignore. Your opponent might think, oh, well, it doesn't do very much, and then you're dead. So, now, again, I don't know how many card slots you're devoting to this card because it doesn't do much, but it seems good.
So the awkward thing about it is it doesn't have a way. She doesn't have a way to protect herself,
Right.
which is my biggest problem with it. I do think that the minus ability is actually, people might be underrating it. Like being able to clone any artifact or creature or make a token of it, especially with all these gear hubs running around, it seems really good. But she just seems super easy to kill. So, I mean, I don't know. There might be a specific deck that she goes in that, can really exploit her, but I don't know.
It's interesting you say super easy to kill. I do think that the way the format sort of looks, we may get another card, but so far we only have one way now in the format, right, to deal anything about planeswalkers. You had Silmar's Command before, that's gone. A bunch of the counter magic is rotating. You have just I was going to say Heroes Temple, that's not it. It's the one from Battle. Thanks for help.
Yeah, you know what we're talking about. The
But, yeah.
sorcery one.
Ruinous Path.
Thank
Ruinous
you.
Path.
And there are some burn spells that still
Yeah, you just burn her.
directly target planeswalkers.
Sure. But not, it's not a ton, so.
Right.
But all right, some exciting cards. We talked mechanics, but we'll talk more cards as the weeks go forward.
We need to talk about the card that I want to talk about.
Okay, I've asked you
How are
3
we
times
going
what
to
it
talk about
is.
Fastlands?
I've asked you 3 times what it is, and then I thought you said Gearbox.
Fastlands.
All right, Fastlands.
So we're finally getting...
Faster.
Yeah, we're finally
Fastlands,
getting
come
the rest of the Fastland cycle, which is... We originally saw that in Scars of Mirrodin. So Blackleaf Cliffs... I can't think of any other ones.
Copperline Gorge,
Copperline
Secret
Gorge,
Coast,
Secret
Dark
Coast,
Shores.
they're going to be obviously very good in standard as well.
Yes.
But I think modern and legacy are tough formats for lands to break into because of the fetch land, dual land, combo. We see fetch lands and dual lands and fetch lands, shock lands, and those are just by far the best thing. So any other lands that kind of break in have to be really, really good. And fast lands are, lands that Jund has made really good use of Black Link Fist because being able to have black around on turn 1. But yeah, that's just going to open up a whole new world of mana bases now. So it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, there's typically a lot of people are for pre-ordering cards, but if you're looking for cards to pre-order that are going to be guaranteed hits, it's play sensible always.
Yeah, take my advice. Even if you don't plan on using, all the color combinations here, just pick up play sets of all these and just hold them. That's what I tend to do with good land cycles. I just get play sets and I hold them because, if they're good and they're played in older formats, they're always going to hold value. And I think these definitely will. And they should be pretty cheap while they're in standard, so pick them up while you can.
Yeah, I think Chase Andrews mapped it out. Either him or it was Blywise who mapped it out. But looking at the land cycles and comparing them, and in standard, these cards were $2 or $3 until the rest of the lands rotated out, and all of a sudden Darkseid Source is a $20 card. And that could very easily happen with these. So
yeah, I could have had all those. I had playsets of Seachrome Coast and Darkseid Shores because I played blue decks back then.
Right.
I didn't bother picking up any of the other ones, and then I needed to get Black Leaves Cliffs to play Grixis. I'm like, oh, these are $25, $30, whatever. Gross.
Yeah.
So just take my advice. Pick up a playset, hold on to it. They won't go down, but
Correct.
Well, that was Dave's ticker.
that was Dave's finance
tip.
Yeah, Dave's finance tip of the week.
So, that's a good call. Let's move on to the last minute community section, which is the death of LSV's playing career for the time being. I could have worded that cleaner.
There was another final in that.
After Worlds, he announced that he's going to be going into the booth for the next season. Now, Wizards was gracious enough to let him defer his platinum for a year, so this is not possibly a permanent arrangement, and it does make more sense for a man who just had his first child and was recently married, and a way for him to stay part of the game. And honestly, people love it, love him as a as a person on coverage. Now, I'm sad because I also love watching the guy play Magic, but this is definitely, we traded Uncle Randy for LSV. We did it.
Yeah, we upgraded. Yeah, it is kind of bittersweet because I definitely do love watching him play, and especially on the streak that he had last year with top 8 3 Pro Tours in a row. It was just man, he's really going on top. Now he did say that this isn't final. He's still going to be streaming, and he's going to play in the occasional GP. But yeah, for the most part, we're just going to be seeing him in the booth. He's going to be doing all the Pro Tours. He'll be doing the World Magic Cup and Worlds next year, as well as some various GPs. So
means we get more LSV's keys. I'm excited.
Keys, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, he is definitely one of, if not the best commentator, I think.
And I think this might possibly set a precedent. You might have players that want to do this more but don't want to lose out on their status at the Players Club. So if Wizards is potentially looking at maybe allowing players to defer to work the booth and participate in Wizards and still be a face of the game or a voice of the game, maybe this is how we get our players who like you have in sports where you have retired players being the casters. Maybe this is how we do it with Magic, since the game itself has a longer play time, basically.
Sure.
You can just play it for longer.
I think it definitely makes sense for them to do that with LSV. I mean, he writes for the Mothership, and he's just been such a figurehead.
He's just a magnetic personality.
Right.
He has legitimate skill at this. Some of the people who even have expressed interest in wanting to go into that don't have have the skill set. But I definitely would agree. I think Wizards is even using like the way they set out GPs as almost like test runs. Like, you know what I mean? Like a couple weeks ago, we had Reed Duke on coverage and Huey Jensen on coverage, and you can sort of see how they work as personalities, and maybe that does lead that direction. But I don't think it'll be for many. I don't think it's like an
it's not
avenue
for everyone.
Right.
It's just the potentiality. It's an option they have.
I think it'll be interesting to see how, if any of the quality drops off. So I know that, like, if you're not playing all the time, you're not testing with the Pro Tour teams, and you're not really in the thick of everything, you might not get all the, like right now, LSV has like a vast knowledge of the formats because he's been in it, he's been playing in all the Pro Tours, he's been part of a team. And if you take that away and you're not part of that, you might lose a little bit there.
I doubt it.
I do doubt it, because he said he's still going to be playing, still be streaming and stuff, so he's going to know his stuff. But I do think that maybe some of that intimate knowledge of the decks and stuff like that might go away. But I thought he mentioned that he might actually be helping test for Pro Tours still.
Yeah,
so I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think he did that.
But anyway, it's pretty exciting, and LSV's always a good time to move. So.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up then and talk about Comic Town here for a little bit. They're running some awesome events next weekend. On Saturday, September the 17th, there is a modern PBTQ with a Eternal Masters product going out as prizes. So that's pretty sweet. All top 8 players will be getting some amount of Eternal Masters. And that's $20 entry and 10 a.m. start time. Then on Sunday, right after that, making your whole weekend magical. They have a standard format SCG IQ with a $30 entry that pays out its normal cash price at the top and merchandise prices out to the rest. So, yeah, honestly, if you go down to the GP this weekend, actually, Morgan, myself, and my wife are playing your team at your end step. We'll be wearing our Comic Town attire as a team to look awesome and unified. So look for us there.
Like you're staring at me. We're not going to be. My team's not going to be unified.
I'm intimidating you with my eyes, David. But the next weekend you can go for a whole weekend in Columbus, right at the hometown, the shop.
Yeah, but Morgan, you were wrong. Standard's not dead. You can go play Standard IQ. That was like the literal last weekend.
Like I said,
that you can play the Standard. So if you enjoy playing
Main company.
Yeah, if you enjoy playing the Card Collected Company, this is your final chance. But yeah.
So with that, let's move into competitive and talk about the World Championship a little bit. This is probably the event I watched the most coverage for out of any event ever. I loved it. They did a great job with coverage, did a great job with storylines. But let's be honest, the reason I watched it is because the People's Champion was doing well and took it down. Congratulations to BBD.
And Brian Brown doing.
From what I understand, Brian Brown doing.
Yeah, correct.
That poor man had his name said 7 different ways, but still came out on top.
Now, I would like to speak my thanks and say that I definitely called both Oliver 2 and Marcio Carvalho as being good picks for the tournament. They both top 4. So
Did they win?
no.
Then what are you bragging about?
Hey, neither did your picks, so I don't.
I'm not bragging about anything.
I got further than all of you.
No, you didn't. You stayed at home while they played Magic. I'm not letting you have this.
Why?
All of us.
Just let me have this
We'll get
something.
Morgan now when he picked Oliver 2, which was a little bit of an unconventional pick, but it came through for you, Morgan. So I'll give you that.
Definitely the Oliver 2 Marcio Carvalho top 4 match did lead to one of the best images I've ever seen out of Magic. Dave tweeted it out last week, where Oliver just top decked the Traversio wall to take the game, and the look that Carvalho gave the camera, oh my god.
It was just like
There's
really.
some salt. There's some salt.
Yeah, seriously, congrats to BBD. And I mean, honestly, we'll probably run into him this weekend, so I'd like to congratulate him face to
I'm
face.
looking forward to it, actually.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and invite him onto the cast. I don't get excited, but I'm gonna invite him.
We're throwing it out there. We're gonna throw the line out. We'll see where it goes.
I mean, we're Facebook friends, so I mean that means it's pretty official.
Yeah, you're basically his best friend.
Yeah, we'll let you ask him, Mike, since you're official.
I mean, I think his like status about like winning the championship had like 5,000 likes, which I mean, dear lord.
Yeah. But seriously, I was super happy for him, and he really is a man of the people. obviously very popular from. I would say mostly from his time with Star City Games. I mean, he was really like one of the faces of Star City for a couple of years there. Constantly could see him on the Open Series. You know, he had a lot of the versus videos and things like that.
I think more than that, though, his writing since he's gone to Channel Fireball has been just great. It's been better.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed his writing. He has a very, I think he has a very unique style. Like he mixes like seriousness with just kind of silliness, and I kind of like it. Yeah, I mean, he's really kind of built himself up from the common grinder, if you will, to all the way up to world champion.
He took the grinder slot into the world championship and took the world championship. He is the people's he's the people's hero.
I can't wait to see who the GP master is next year.
Apparently that slot wasn't exciting enough to keep. It didn't do anything this year. Why would they keep it next year?
They took that away?
Yeah.
Weird.
Didn't they also take?
Surely the draft master though, because the draft master finished in the finals.
No, that's gone too.
How about the constructed master that finished in the top 4?
No, also gone.
Oh.
Didn't they also take away the auto queue for the winner?
Oh, that's awkward.
Wow. That's awkward. Hashtag rigged system.
It's so they get in mostly off of winning Pro Tours and then at-large points based on how many Pro points they have for the season. Now, I will say, Katie, they do get a huge head start because that tournament had, 15 rounds? 14 rounds?
14.
14 rounds. No, I'm serious. Each match win in that tournament netted you a Pro point. And when I
in the top 4, netted you 3.
Yeah. So BBD left with 12 or 11 or 12 match wins plus.
I think he had 10 wins plus 16 or 17.
Yeah. So most is you get only 3 pro points for doing that's the base for going to a pro tour. So he essentially got a really good pro tour amount from that. So anybody who played in that event has a huge head start for next year above everyone else.
Yeah.
So that's how you get back in. You can keep on the chain easier if you've already been to one. So, but it is sad that took away some of the more exciting ones. Yes, King's Island took it. Morgan, dear Lord.
Do you want to hit that on the way back?
He wouldn't stop pointing at it like a small child. Look, roller coasters.
To be fair, yeah, there's lots of rides and fun things to do. So.
Yeah, it's very colorful right now. It's dusk where we are, and all the bright lights distracted me.
Yeah, when we started, this caster was light out, and now it is almost dark. So we're really.
But I do think it's kind of sad that they took away some of the more interesting slots, just because you saw that some of those players did really, really well, and they had to really fight, I think, a bit harder to get those. I mean, BBD had to travel everywhere to get that thing, and he still had to sweat it out the last weekend.
He really, really earned it. He was going to multiple continents to go to GPs to try to get it because that race was so tight, near the end there.
And Carvalho, I mean, say what you will about the man, and there was enough of that going on Twitter.
Yeah, he's a very divisive character.
But him earning the draft master slot, they followed that all through the last Pro Tour. I mean, dear Lord, going 3-0 in a Pro Tour draft pod is not easy. Doing it that many times in a row is.
So, yeah. So if you don't know, he went 6-0 draft at Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad, 6-0 draft at Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. He 3-0'd his first draft here, and then he was 2-0 in the last draft at World. So he was 1 win away from having the perfect draft record in Shadows over Innistrad Limited, and he ended up losing to was it JC Tao that beat him?
I believe so. Yes, JC Tao was the one who got the 1 win from him. So.
Shout out to JC Tao. I did not expect him to do well.
He got out by himself, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure, but
I believe he was by himself.
He finished just outside the top 4. I believe he was just. I don't know if he was tied, but I think he was one match, one match behind or whatever. Even though LSV didn't top 4, he had a virtual top 4. He was out on breakers. I think he finished 6th. In his own words, he top 8'd his 4th straight premier tournament. Too bad top 8 doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, no joke.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch. It had some interesting storylines. I thought.
Yeah, I thought I was going to sort of hate how spread out it was, but the way they had it sort of line up with all of their release stuff for Kaladesh, it really did make it feel like it was the place to be. and they kept talking about the venue, and the venue looked great, and it just I think this is a really, really successful PAX. That's how they're planning on doing these weekends from now on, where they have the new set and they have the World Championship, and they spread it out over a couple of days. Man, that was great. We had 4 days of high-level Magic where you could watch in the evening, and also get to see new cards, and all of it was exciting, and I really liked it.
Yeah, no, it was very good on Wizards, and it's awesome because even in the final rounds, that you have a crowd, and you have players that literally have to wear headphones to keep people from saying things, but it's so interesting to see that be the case and have I don't know, an audience for a Magic tournament, or
an actual theater.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
they put a lot of time and effort into it. I think that they should get some props for it.
For sure.
Yeah, I want to touch on that just a little bit. So you mentioned the headphones and the live audience. So they really, I think it was a step forward into being more of the esports thing. And one thing that they did with all the competitors is everybody had a jersey made, and then their sponsor was kind of front and center on the jersey, and then the name on the back and all that stuff. So everybody kind of had the same. They're all wearing the same thing. Outside of sponsorship, so I thought that was interesting too, and I think we'll see that a little bit more going into when they start doing the teams that we talked about a couple weeks ago with the teams that you can form across multiple Pro Tours. So it was interesting for sure. I think they were trying some new things with this, and I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, most was successful. Now, we're not going to spend too much time delving into the list this week, mainly because, as we said, Standard is a little dead. And the modern, I will say modern at these events is a little interesting. That being said, people were out crying out for all the, how unfair modern has been and how fast the format is, and no one plays interactive decks, and then the entire format showed up with Abzan.
I will say, Worlds is just a weird tournament anyway, though, because it's a smaller field and it's very metagamed. So, for example, I don't think anybody played Affinity.
I think there was just one Affinity.
Yeah, which is kind of absurd. It's not really representative of a true modern field.
That's true.
So I mean, I don't think. I mean, you might be able to take away some specific tech that you might see in a deck, but just keep in mind that all these players were kind of metagaming, against themselves, and a lot of people went with the safe choice of Abzan. So this isn't really representative of a true modern.
Sure, and Standard was dominated by versions of Bant and versions of Emerge.
It was literally half Bant company decks of some Persuasion and half Emrakul decks of some Persuasion. So I mean, that's kind of where we're at in Standard right now.
I will say what you will about Bant Company, how tired you are of it. Those pseudo mirrors are still some of the most skill-intensive matches you'll see. And if you watch the finals, if you watched Game 3 that was an hour long of the finals, it took them forever to play through that game. But BBD took the small edges, play 2 was out. The Tragic Arrogance was the tipping point. But honestly, watching him navigate that game and Game 4 and just put it away was impressive, truly impressive.
That Game 3 is where BBD really earned it, I feel like. I think he clearly outplayed Carvalho in that game, and he really, I think that's where he really won the championship. I think because I believe it was 1-1 at that point.
Yes. Game 3.
Yeah, that was really the tipping point in the match, and I mean, I didn't think he was going to win. I mean, there was a point where Carvalho was way ahead. And this was even before the Tragic Arrogance happened. There was some turn where BBD had 2 Dromoka's commands and Carvalho had 1 Dromoka's command, so they had this fight over trying to kill Avacyn with multiple Dromoka's commands. And that was a hell of a game. I mean, you mentioned it was over an hour. It didn't feel like it. I was glued watching it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I don't think I'll go back and watch it because it's so long. But in the moment, it was pretty awesome.
The moment specifically with where they had the 3 Dromoka's commands and everything. It was just watching how well BBD sold that. You know what I mean?
Not only, but BBD played it so crisp too. He knew exactly what he was going to do. And you could tell Carvalho was kind of caught off guard. He was a little bit more unsure in not only just that turn, but on a lot of the other turns. And like BBD kind of like, you know, he did his fair share of thinking, but it was all very clear communication, very crisp.
Oh yeah, you could tell during a couple of those turns where like BBD was very confident and wasn't giving it away, and like Carvalho was like actively grimacing, making plays because he knew he was walking into like bad territory for him. And like when you can just watch from the facial expressions and know that a man's kind of beat, it's impressive here. So. So yeah, Worlds all in all was a success for sure. So let's quickly talk about the opens.
Wait, there was an open that happened?
Yeah, no one really cares. So it did have a lot of big names in it though. The names that weren't at Worlds. So it was won by Ted Felicity with Bane Company. Big shock.
Weird.
What?
Weird.
Yeah, but in the top 8 we had Sheen Serrani playing Esper Control, Todd Anderson with Teamer Emerge, Cedric Phillips with Mono White Humans, shocking, Noah Walker, Teamer Emerge, Frank Scarn, Sultai Emerge, and then outside of the top 8 we had Ben Friedman, Ross Merriam, Dan Jessup, Jaden Clomparents. The names were there.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of SCG regulars. It was. I didn't really watch any of it, so.
I watched snippets. I did watch one round. I watched one of the rounds where Cedric lost. That's about it.
Yeah, I think I saw that one.
But no, unfortunately for Star City, while they are normally the number ones, Worlds was just better this weekend.
Which you would hope it would be. You would hope people would care more about the World Championship.
Well, I'm saying from a coverage perspective,
Yeah.
Worlds was better.
Yeah.
I think they knocked it out of the park. And, not to be negative about the rest of the SCG crew, they do a good job. But when it's not Cedric, when it's not Patrick, it's just not as strong. The commentary is just not as strong. What are you going to do? Modern Classic was won by Benjamin Nikolic. I'm sorry, I got to take up Morgan's spot here.
Yeah. I say those names wrong.
Trying to play like Russian, like Nikolic. That sounds cool. Playing Jeskai Control, but I do think the highlight of the tournament was definitely Jeff Hoagland playing Nile Landfall all the way to 3rd place, and that list was really crazy. He had played at Geopedes and Stublinks and Night of the Reliquaries,
And Scape Shift.
Why
not?
And Flag Zones and Valakut. And why not? It was just the Ravnica theme deck. But it was pretty nifty, and like something I think well out of what most people would have expected from Jeff. So when you sat down across from him and said, okay, bolt the bird, bolt the step links.
Bolt the step. What? I mean, you probably want to bolt the step links too, but still.
And then the Legacy Classic was won by Damon Whitby playing Dredge. So
Dredge is back.
So
that's 2 weeks. Maybe people Legacy just forgetting.
They all forgot about Dredge.
Dredge finally breaking out in Legacy after modern success. So, what's next? Vintage? I don't know. We'll see.
So
We'll keep it posted.
Sorry to short sell the Open there. Just with it being the last major standard event and with a huge rotation coming up and really the optimism that Kaladesh offers, I'm just done with Dragons. I'm so done. I'm done collecting anyone's companies. I'm done hangering any walkers back. I'm done with any prodigies of Rin.
I'm
done knowing anyone's origin story.
Yeah, I don't care about the commands of any Dromikas.
Or any dragons for all that matter.
We'll do our fond farewell at rotation time. Play our in memoriam segment.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get to the question of the week, and I think Dave came up with a pretty interesting one, and something that's sort of at the nerd center there of the community. So one of the new planeswalkers, Chandra Torch of Defiance, which we talked about earlier, has generated a ton of buzz. It is currently pre-selling for $50.
$60.
It went up to $60?
$60.
Okay, wow.
I did put 50 to 60.
You did, but I was going to go with the Star City price, and
Star City price is $60.
Okay, well, there you go. Is the game too reliant on planeswalkers? Do good planeswalkers make gameplay less interesting? Dave, you posed the question, so why don't you start?
So, I think it really depends on what format you're talking about. I think Modern has shown that really only the best of the best planeswalkers can break in. You know, Liliana of the Veil, Karn in the Tron deck,
Ugin, for that matter.
or Ugin. Yeah, Nahiri has recently, recently shown that it's good enough. We've seen, some number of Johnny Vengeance or,
New Liliana has made it in the last month.
a little bit, but none of them are really taking over the format. I mean, you could argue that like turn 3 Karn is like pretty impressive, but you have to do a lot to actually set that up. So, I mean, whatever. But so I think for Modern, the power level is fine. Like they're not typically going to take over the game, though they can if they go unchecked. For Standard, it's a little bit more of a problem though, because in Standard, the format's not fast enough to just ignore the Planeswalkers, so you really do have to interact with them. And there are only so many cards that can directly deal with them once they're on the battlefield. I do think that good Planeswalkers are pretty impressive. Now, we haven't seen a Planeswalker really take over the format since Jace. Jace the Mind Sculptor was too good. But I do feel like when Planeswalkers are the best cards, it does make gameplay a little bit less exciting, in my opinion. Just because like the whole game shifts to, okay, I have to deal with this thing. I don't know.
I guess I have mixed feelings on that because, so I would agree a good Planeswalker causes the sub-game of getting rid of the Planeswalker, but I think the only reason that is, like, we've had, enchantments and artifacts that have these sort of large effects for a long time. The difference is you can attack the Planeswalker, so I think having the option doesn't lead to bad gameplay. I think it can lead to better gameplay. I definitely don't think the question poses that is the game too reliant on Planeswalkers? I think it's a twofold question. They're definitely reliant on them from a storytelling perspective, and I think from that angle, they've been 100% a success. People associate with them, love them, and they are now the face of the game. Jace and Chandra really have become the faces of the game. And when you have a new set, like we have Kaladesh, Saheeli is the person on the cover for these sets. She's selling it. So I think, if you said they're too reliant, I don't think that's possible. They're just, sorry, there's some hubbubs on this bridge. It's pretty bad. Wait for the break. Anyways, though, so I don't think they can be too reliant there. They've actually found a marketing gold mine. As far as like printing them in Standard, it's interesting, as I think the inverse is actually true. I don't think the format rotates around Planeswalkers. Most of the time it doesn't. They're included in some number in decks, but rarely anymore are decks actually built around them. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at, like, Jund in Modern, it's definitely, obviously Liliana's very good, but I don't think the deck's built around it. Jeskai Control is built around Nahiri now. So there's an example of it happening, but in Standard, that doesn't really happen. I think the opposite is true. I think the sellers of the product relied too heavily on Planeswalkers. Star City is the one who allows this price to exist. They're the one pre-selling for this much. They know the Planeswalkers aren't going to be there. Their finance guys pretend like it's okay, while also saying, well, they really can't sustain these prices, and they can't. Look at Chandra compared to Nahiri. Nahiri is in a Tier 1 deck in Modern as a 4-of, and was played in Standard. So it broke into an older format as a 4-of, and couldn't sustain a price higher than $30, because it was in a large set for the fall. You're telling me Chandra's $60?
Well, I think the issue there is Nahiri is not ubiquitous in Standard, which is the most played format. I think Chandra could be both in Modern and in Standard, so it's probably not $60 for sure. I mean, really, I can see it staying around like $30 and $40.
I can see it being $30, but I think, they're obviously the marquee cards from a storytelling aspect, so they have to be relied upon. But the stories that continue to suggest, like, every single Planeswalker that's printed is measured by Jace, and somehow they keep being more and more expensive than Jace. Like, was. And honestly, Chandra at $60 is pretty close to what the Mind Sculptor is right now. So, I don't think the game is too reliant on it. I've never felt... I mean, Callblade being the one example where I've never felt in Standard like, this Planeswalker is too good for me to play Magic.
So I agree with you in the sense that they've been very successful, and obviously with the storytelling and all that, they've been awesome and completely have changed the game. I mean, not only in gameplay but also in storytelling. So that's been a home run. I do think you're wrong a little bit on like saying a standard doesn't necessarily revolve around them. I mean, we saw green white tokens, which featured Gideon and the small Nissa was the best deck in the format for a while, and now we've had a lot of planeswalkers. So we've seen black white control decks with creatureless, so it basically relies on planeswalkers to win the game. So I mean, not every deck obviously, but there are certain strategies that just revolve completely around planeswalkers.
But yeah, but like I don't know if I buy. I'll give you green white tokens. You're right. That deck definitely was planeswalker based.
Yeah.
But like saying black white control is like a planeswalker deck, like that's the win condition. But that's the same deck building style we've had since the beginning of Magic. You're gonna play whatever in another form, like in an older format, that win condition was a Titan. In another format, that win condition was Howling Mine.
Right,
So
sure.
I don't know if you could say it's too reliant on planeswalkers. Those are just the win conditions of choice now. Now maybe I'm getting into semantics there. Maybe you're going to argue it is a planeswalker deck, but I don't know that's the case. I mean, the best deck in Standard played very few. You know what I mean? The ones they did play, they only played them because they were actually creatures you could hit off of company. Beyond that, you saw 2 copies of Tamiyo in BBD's deck and some Gideons out of the sideboard and others. So, like, you're talking about the best deck in the format is not heavily reliant on them. Heck, for a long time, a bunch of them didn't have that many Jaces in them. And the Nissa is one of, maybe 2 of sometimes.
Sure.
So, like, I definitely don't think they dominate any format.
Okay, let me throw this at you then. Here's a little twist. It's kind of a little offshoot of the same question.
Fair.
Do you feel like planeswalkers push players out of the format? So
Yes.
we saw Jace Vryn's Prodigy reach $100 at one point. We've seen Liliana Lasso, what, $50?
Yeah.
Chandra pre-selling for $60. I mean, all these planeswalkers are printed in Mythic, so if any of them are good or staples of the format, they're going to be pretty high dollar cards.
I totally agree with you on that. I will say that Jace is still the most unique example we've had in Standard in a long, long time. And it was the perfect mix of a 2-mana planeswalker and fetch lands. And you've seen Jace, plummet since the eternal staple fetch lands rotated out of the format.
Right.
But Liliana, I'll give you that one. That one still hasn't even made sense to me because there hasn't been a 4 of Liliana deck. The ones that play it are playing it as like a 2 of, and it's not even all of the decks, and it's barely seeing modern play. And you could argue Eldritch Moon's a small set, and it is. Eldritch Moon is a small set, but it had a fairly, maybe not as large of a release window as other sets. Maybe that's why. That one does feel weird to me, and I would agree. Yeah, it does price some players out of the format because they're just so powerful in general. Those people that show up to FNF with their with their sort of like casual deck, their brew they wanted to play, and then their opponent casts, the new Chandra against them, and it's more expensive than every card in their entire other deck, and they have no way to deal with it. That's a feel bad, and I'll give you that one.
I remember like literally when Jason Mindsculptor came out, playing an FNM, and I didn't own them yet, and I remember playing against somebody that had them, and I was just like, wow, I like literally can't afford to keep up with that.
Right.
I eventually did accumulate them eventually, but they came out and they were immediately. I believe when they first pre-sale, they were like $20 because that was really the first Planeswalker that was like absurd price-wise. But they quickly shot up and spiked. But yeah, I mean.
I think we could take that into a different discussion, so I don't know how far we want to go. But there's something to be said that, like, that's the way the game was meant to be played, was that, like, you accumulated cards. It's a trading card game. You open packs, you blue decks, but competitive doesn't allow for that. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that means that you should, because this is the voice of Resurgence argument. You know what I mean? Should your Mythic be these tournament staples? You know what I mean? That are going to cost a ton of money. You know what I mean? And I still don't know if I have a good answer to that. But Planeswalkers definitely are Mythic. They should be Mythic. So I don't know where the middle is there.
Yeah, you can't really have them not be Mythic, just because
Absolutely.
the unique card. It's supposed to be special. I don't know.
But being the only card type that only appears in one rarity is awkward.
Right. What do you think, Morgan?
Yeah, I mean, it's simple. So obviously we agree story-wise. Like these are your mascots, and you need them.
Yeah, I think that's how we have decided. That's
yeah,
that's
they-
good.
You just
They
look at the cosplayers and all that stuff.
Yeah, they gravitate people towards the game, which is great. So like, will they like ever get rid of Planeswalkers? No. It's I think I can agree with you guys when they say like they force people out of the game. People play this game with very diverse backgrounds, financially speaking, and you can't just afford like to spend $200+ on 4 cards in your deck. I mean it's ludicrous, and accumulating cards over time is great. Drafting initially to get cards and like trading and everything like that. But I mean like trading is become like so very it's become very tiresome. It's become with the access to technology, people always know how much cards are, and they always want to get value, from their cards. You never have this instance where it's like, well, I want this card, well, I want this card, so let's trade. And maybe that's a good thing, but it's a double-edged sword, so people don't necessarily have as easy access to cards as they used to, and that's simple. And with Magic ballooning, and the secondary market becoming so much of a thing, these planeswalkers hold prices that maybe they shouldn't. So your Liliana argument, like maybe that card shouldn't be that expensive, but the market's so big now, it can hold because it still sells through.
It's true.
So you have that sort of difficulty with these planeswalker cards, these powerful mythics that you can't
We're in Kentucky.
that you can't print at a low rarity. You can't print these at rare. They show up too often.
Yeah.
In red drafts, they give
yeah.
people, a real bad taste in their mouths. So you have to print them at Mythic. But I think it's like, it's cards that have to exist. And if they didn't exist, there'd be other cards at Mythic that would also force people out of the format. It's not something that I think is a problem at this point in time, and I think they've gotten so much better at printing planeswalkers than what they used to be. And a lot of planeswalkers that we've seen have become like utility cards more than like game-ending bombs that people cast and just win the game on the spot.
And they fixed the mana costs for that as well.
Yeah. Very much so.
So let me challenge you on that a little bit. So have they gotten better at printing them?
Oh, I completely agree. I think they learned so much from Jace the
Right. They've definitely homogenized them.
Right. So I feel like you go back to Lorwyn is when we first saw Planeswalkers, right? And that was 2007, right? So it's been like, 9 years? So I feel like the first set of Planeswalkers that came out were very... It felt like they didn't want to make them too good because they weren't really sure. But I think that was probably the right power level for them to be at. Where it's like, you can play these cards that will help you, but they're not going to completely take over the game by themselves. And you're not going to build your whole deck around it, but they can supplement your strategy essentially. And I think they've obviously gotten a lot more experienced, over the years, and I feel like they're really pushing the envelope now with them, pushing Planeswalkers in all these different directions to see where they can go. But
so do you think like once Jace the Mind Sculptor happened, they sort of tick down and then have slowly started to creep back up?
Oh yeah.
So
I think they definitely learned a lesson from Jace. I mean that was basically like, how far can we push a Planeswalker?
They're like, too far.
Make it good. Yeah. And, well, people forget. I mean, at the time, Blue was like completely unplayable when Jace came out. So Jace really saved Blue from at least the standard there.
And he died for Blue Sins. I understand.
Yeah.
Die for your format.
Right. I definitely feel like that they did that. They kind of went crazy with Jace, and they're like, all right, guys, that was a little too much. That was a little too hard. But I don't know, man. The new Chandra really feels like they're kind of pushing the envelope again. Now, it's not as good as Jace, but it does feel like it's gonna dominate the game.
I'm not so sold on that, because we really don't know like what's going to be out there. We really don't know what's going to exist in a vacuum. Is Chandra a very powerful card? Of course, yes,
Yeah.
she is a very powerful card. But Standard isn't in a vacuum. Modern isn't in a vacuum. Legacy isn't in a vacuum. There are other cards that exist that can combat, this Planeswalker. I mean, we're living in a Standard right now that you can cast a 13/13 creature that takes over your opponent's turn.
And it doesn't always win the game.
Yeah.
So decks are built around casting
Right.
multiples of them.
Right, exactly. So it's like,
I mean,
a card can be powerful in a vacuum, but I will be hesitant to judge it until we see it in context of the format.
and the easiest way to compare even like Jace to Chandra, like look at the Gear Hulk we discussed in this episode. You play the Gear Hulk against Jace, Jace laughs and bounces it to your hand. You play the Gear Hulk against the Chandra, she can't kill it, can't interact with it favorably, and you would kill Chandra. And I think it's important to note that like that alone is such a huge difference in power level.
I think she
and
killed
tempo.
the black one.
The white one's a 4/4, right?
4/5.
Oh, well, never mind.
The black one is a 5/4.
There you go.
So you can kill the black
I mean,
one.
if you put all the counters on other creatures, you know what I mean?
Oh, the green one, yeah.
Yeah, the Gear Hulk. But so I think it's important to just like consider from that perspective. Chandra could be very, I expect her to be very good in this format. But, standard more than any other format is about attacking. And most decks have a steady way to attack Planeswalkers as well, which is another reason why Planeswalkers haven't taken over formats. And if you look at a number of the cards that we haven't gotten to yet, a number of the red cards subtly have haste on them or ways to gain haste. And even if there aren't a lot of creatures or aren't a lot of cards specifically that kill a Planeswalker, haste creatures do it. Manlands pressure Planeswalkers, which may be another reason why they felt they could print it in this kind of format. So, I really do trust Wizards on that, on their printing it at that point. So.
Yeah.
I will say, you mentioned like the opening of this. My wife is here still. What card do you always want to open, Katie?
Me.
What card do you always want to open? Oh, come on. Whenever you ask, what do you want to open? You're not helping me here. Planeswalkers, right?
Or mythic.
Well, Planeswalkers are mythics. And then every time you open a Planeswalker, what's the first question you ask me?
I don't ever open Planeswalker.
Okay, well, when we do, what do you ask me?
I don't know.
Man, this was not how I expected this conversation to go.
We'll cut this part off.
No,
In all honesty, like it's always, how much is that? Can we sell it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So like, there's an excitement of opening the Mythic, especially a Planeswalker, but half the excitement is going, can we make money off this because these are way overpriced?
Yeah. And everyone feeds into that. Everyone wants, to get value. And so much of this game revolves around that in and outside of the actual game. So I think that contributes to sort of the reason why we have this issue with Planeswalkers and like Mythics in general, in all honesty. We've had some fairly, expensive Mythics that aren't Planeswalkers that do exist in the format that, cause people to want to leave the game. And I think the true, I actually think in all honesty, like the true issue with this format in a lot of ways has been the unplayability, at least towards the tail end of Standard, of less expensive decks, like in general. Where, you have, mono white humans that still exist, but even then, you have expensive cards in there, where it's still like around a $200 deck in Standard, and that's like your entry level, like that's like your bar. We had like a slight glimmer of hope with the blue-red Thermo Thing deck, which was, relatively inexpensive, but even that had Jace's, Rinse Prodigy.
And now that deck wants Chandra.
Yeah, so it's like, we run into these issues where we have these almost budget decks, and then they kind of spike with these, mythic cards that people have to sink money into, and there aren't good, inexpensive alternatives that you can always slot in. And most importantly, we lost the aggressive red deck. Like, it just has not existed because of, Clayton Company being so aggressive.
Coming soon.
Hopefully. I mean, that's my hope.
Here's another thing that doesn't help either. I'm really good at opening mythics. Never ever have Planeswalker. So how is there this many more mythics that aren't Planeswalker? Even if a Planeswalker's mythics, I almost feel like
enjoy
they should
Katie's-
have their own other category, like
It's a
super mythic or
conspiracy.
something.
Yeah, I enjoy Katie's anecdotal evidence of Planeswalker drought.
You and my engineer wife, who lives her life by data, and gets upset about anecdotal evidence.
I do.
But
But it is even fair though, the argument of like, again, opening them and like slowly accruing a collection is really hard when like, yeah, there are 10 mythics in a set and like you want Chandra, but you opened, the white Gear Hulk for the 6th time and you're like, but I wanted Chandra, and now this white Gear Hulk's $6 and Chandra's $60 and I can't even trade for it.
Right. So I this will be sort of my closing remarks. Planeswalkers are good for every person that plays the game. Everyone wants Planeswalkers.
It's true.
And that's why Planeswalkers, while I know this doesn't necessarily get to the heart of the question that was necessarily proposed, but like Planeswalkers will always exist in some facet because everyone wants them. Casual people want them, Commander people want them, Standard players, Modern players, like everyone likes to see the new Planeswalkers and likes to see what they do, and it drives people to not only purchase cards secondarily, but also purchase cards from your LGSs, which means that your LGSs have to purchase cards from distributors that have to purchase cards from Wizards, so on and so forth. So,
Yeah, I don't think any of us are saying that Planeswalkers are bad or like they shouldn't be in the game. I think they definitely should be in the game, but I'm just saying power level wise, I think they make the games a little bit too slanted towards dealing with the Planeswalker rather than the Planeswalker supplementing a strategy. It's like now everything's about the Planeswalker.
Yeah.
You gotta
I
make
agree
those.
with that.
and I just think that it has to do, and I think like we feel that way because we just haven't had a good deck that just didn't care about Planeswalkers. We haven't had an Atarka Red where it's like, oh, that's a nice Planeswalker. You're dead now. I'm
What
glad
if
you got to
could
cast that.
build a giant Planeswalker deck? Nothing but Planeswalkers. Has anybody ever done that
And you
before?
can, actually.
In all honesty, at this point in time, like Wizards had suggested that maybe you could try and do that with Call of the Gatewatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a card that essentially lets you look at the top 7 cards of your library and put 2 Planeswalkers into play.
Yeah.
So, the collected company for Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
So you could do that, but even then, like, see, I think the thing is, if Planeswalkers were too good, then that deck would be too good, and it's bad. So that may be indicative of how, Planeswalkers as just part of the deck. So that would make, I guess the fact that deck, which they are begging you to build, isn't good enough. Now you could say maybe it's because of mana, but like
Yeah, it's 6 mana. It's expensive.
No, I'm saying like color, being able to cast. But the tools are there, and the deck just isn't good enough. So that maybe tells you a little bit about the balance of the cards. But I think I agree with you, Morgan. To sort of close as well. Like, yeah, Planeswalkers are good. I don't think Standard's too reliant on them, but I do think the pricing structure, especially of stores that are holding pre-order prices, it's ludicrous. Now you could say, but that's free. People are paying this price, and they are. But you're the one who's starting it at $30 as opposed to somewhere in the price of a regular card. You're the one doing that.
Now, to be fair, like Chandra did start at a reasonable price.
She started at 30. That wasn't a reasonable price. She started at 30.
Correct.
Is that reasonable?
That's pretty much what most any Planeswalker starts at these days.
So the precedent's already been set.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm still going to posit that's not reasonable. But for what they have done, price memory-wise, sure.
Yeah.
But they are the ones who hype it by saying like, oh, let's compare it to Jace, when half of them are definitely never even close to it. So they certainly try to build the hype so that the price goes up, and that's not wrong of them.
No.
But it does lead to feel bads for the player base.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can take a look at most any company, even as recently as Apple, they're a company that likes to build hype for their new products.
Oh yeah, Chandra doesn't have a headphone jack.
Yeah, no headphone jacks for Chandra, sorry guys. You have to get Bluetooth. But, there are a lot of companies that basically do this, and it's just weird because we know that Wizards isn't necessarily doing this. Wizards doesn't set the price of these cards secondhand. It is specifically the Star City Games, the Channel Fireballs of the world. So, but I mean, like, we even have avenues to get your cards cheaper through like places like TCG Play, which is a very, very free and open market. But you have some risk involved with that because sometimes your cards don't arrive, like I've recently experienced. And sometimes even that price is obviously driven up by the big guys. All they have to do is undercut Star City Games, and then all the next person has to do is undercut a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. Or
That's how you sell your college textbooks.
Yeah,
It's true.
and or rely on their reliability, like Star City Games does, and some of the more prominent TCG player stores do. But I mean, like, this is a larger discussion about like
Yeah, I
the
think we're
secondary
straying.
market.
Yeah,
So
we're
we kind of
getting
strayed off the
off topic
path.
here.
So, but in the end, I think I lean more towards Mike. I don't think Planeswalkers at this point in time are they are they do not like dictate any format in particular. Probably though, the closest format that they would be able to do that in would be Standard, because the card pool is just low.
Right.
It's
And
just
they
smaller.
haven't really.
Right.
One deck recently.
I even felt like you don't have your it's mono white humans. It's not like mono white Gideon. You don't have like color Planeswalker. You don't have green black Liliana. So and
And
even
it is green, black, Liliana.
It's not though. They play 2 or 3. Most of the lists weren't even getting up to 4.
Anyway.
I mean, it's green,
I
black.
guess you can make the
tireless
argument
tracker.
that Stoneforge, obviously, Cobblade was not blue white Jace.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's because Squadron Hawk is a better card than
It's
Jace.
because they didn't want
But
to-
that's a conversation for it.
It's because they didn't want to emphasize that Jace was the best player. They're like, no, it's so unfortunate.
No, he's not even that good. I swear.
It's definitely the Squadron Hawks.
Right, Elf. Come on, guys.
But no, I don't feel Chandra will. I feel like they're better at least having an idea of what a powerful planeswalker will do in a format, and maybe with quicker rotations they can kind of play a little bit looser with having cards be a little bit too powerful, because they know that in a couple months there's going to be new cards that counterbalance that. So.
And if they did make a mistake, at least it was finally with a Chandra. So
Yeah, I mean, give her a shot.
kudos to me.
Give her a shot. Now, I think that at some point in time we are going to have a discussion about standard and quick rotations, especially with cards being so high. And I think it's a good discussion that we'll have to have, because I feel like I'm feeling a little bit of standard fatigue, in all honesty. Like, these cards are exciting, but they're very expensive, and with more quickly fluctuating standard, how viable are these investments that I'm making? But that's a topic for another
we'll
day.
table that
bank
one. That's a good one,
We'll
though.
bank that.
All right, well, Dave, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, let's head into the wrap-up here. So obviously this weekend, if you didn't know, is GP Louisville, and apparently it is the place to be.
Oh, yeah.
We will be there. Please come say hi. And when I say we, I mean all of Veteran Step. Dave was here teaming with some other prominent players, as is Jordan with his own team. So come say hi to any of us. I should also point out that Dave's team did take down the Team Trios event last week at Comic Town.
Yeah.
So our team did not do so well. We decided to get food halfway through, and we're late to go around, and we all got game losses.
Curse you, Taco Bell!
That took 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Even though it's fast food.
That's the last time I think outside the bun.
Aw.
Okay.
Can I just say, so that was the first team trios tournament I had played in probably literally like 10 years.
Oh, that's
at
so
least.
much fun.
And it was so much fun. And I'm really, really excited for this weekend. Even if we don't do well, it should be a great time. So,
Agreed.
but we're gonna do well, so it's fine.
We also have GP Kyoto this week, which is also team sealed.
They
And
had
yes,
some absurd number of teams too.
did they really?
I think
Why didn't we go to that one, guys?
742 teams or something like that.
Whoa. Do you have any idea what the count here is?
Teams.
I don't.
So this one was capped at 800 teams. I don't
Okay.
think we're anywhere near that, because there was never any kind of like,
Gotcha.
oh, you better pre-reg now.
Yeah, there was never sort of-
No, the pre-reg now was for price.
Right,
I
but-
apologize if you registered for this GP this week.
No, that was me. Yeah, yesterday.
High five, bro. But yeah, the tour.
Dave doesn't like money, apparently.
The SCG tour is off this week. They come back next week though with I think some modern action, right? Is it
Yeah.
Modern or Legacy?
SCG was, yeah, it was a Modern Open in Orlando.
Orlando, that's what it is.
Yep.
So Orlando. Oh, sorry.
And then the next week is pre-releases. So,
Absolutely, yeah. Like moving right along. So that means we'll be having a Palooza coming at you real soon. I try to make
right,
it.
right at your face.
So I think that's going to do it for us. I do want to point out, kudos to my wife who sat through this. She has never listened to a full episode until now. We forced her to by promise.
Challenge though, because I didn't listen to the whole thing.
Oh well, we're gonna play it back for you. We're about to start the playback right
Yeah,
now.
we gotta check the recording.
Yeah, we gotta check the recording the whole time.
But yeah, I mean, it was fun. So,
And now you're internet famous.
It's true.
And by famous, I mean like there's 6 people who have heard you.
hopefully
A
just
whole 6.
one. Oh no, 3, just you guys.
You did it. You figured it out.
Yes. I know your math.
All right, but I think that's gonna do it for us. So you guys have a great weekend. Bye.
We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Sorry, I forgot the catchphrase.
Yeah, man. Catch
Okay.
you next time.
Catch you next time. Catch you on the flippity flop.
No, that's almost as worse as you may go to your turn.
See you later, alligator.
In a wild crocodile.
No, it's after a while.
That's what he said,
No,
right?
he said in a while.
Oh, you're.
After
We gotta end the show. Goodbye,
All
guys.
right, bye.